heartbreaking story of Matt from Matt's off-road recovery.
So that was an accident. I would love to say that I was smart enough to do that, but I wasn't. Stupid mistake.
In the quiet town of Hurricane, Utah, long before millions of people around the world knew his name, Matt Wetzel was just a small-town guy with a big dream. He didn't have the glitz, the glamour, or even the cameras back then. What he did have was determination and an unwavering love for something most people wouldn't even think twice about: vehicle recovery. Matt grew up surrounded by the rugged landscapes of southern Utah, a place where sand, rock, and unpredictable weather often left people stranded. While most kids dreamed of sports or fame, Matt found himself drawn to machines, towing, and the challenge of helping people out of tough spots. He loved the idea of being the guy who could show up when all hope seemed lost and pull someone back onto solid ground. That love for recovery work would eventually lead him to build something extraordinary: Winder Towing, a local towing business he helped grow from scratch. But let's be honest, starting a business like that in a small town wasn't easy. There were already established tow companies. Competition was fierce, and the desert roads weren't exactly forgiving on equipment. Matt had to scrape together everything he had, financially and physically, just to keep the wheels turning. In those early days, money was tight. Jobs were unpredictable. One day he might get a call to pull out a car buried in the sand dunes. The next, he might sit by the phone waiting, hoping someone needed help. It wasn't glamorous work, but for Matt, it was rewarding. He wasn't in it for fame or fortune. He was in it because he genuinely cared about people. He believed that no one deserved to be left stranded, and he made it his mission to be the guy people could count on. And then came the idea that would quietly plant the seed for something much bigger. Matt realized that the recoveries he was doing weren't just routine jobs, they were stories. Every call had a human element: a family stuck in the middle of nowhere, an off-roader who pushed too far, or a traveler who never imagined the desert could swallow a car whole. Matt wasn't just recovering vehicles, he was witnessing moments of panic, relief, and gratitude. But at this stage, there were no cameras, no subscribers, no merchandise line. It was just Matt, a tow rope, and a relentless determination to make Winder Towing work. He hustled day and night, balancing family life with the demands of a business that sometimes seemed like it could collapse at any moment. Those struggles, the sleepless nights, the equipment breakdowns, the endless desert heat, shaped Matt into the man people would one day admire on YouTube. He didn't know it then, but each hard-earned recovery, each time he showed up when no one else could, was building the foundation for something far greater than he could have imagined. This was the beginning of a journey. A small-town operator chasing a dream, not yet knowing the world was about to discover him. When Matt Wetzel first started filming his recoveries, it wasn't part of some grand business plan. There was no studio, no production crew, no sponsorship deals waiting in the background. It was just Matt, his tow ropes, his team, and the Utah desert. At first, he shared clips with friends and family, small videos showing the crazy situations cars got themselves into and the equally crazy ways he managed to pull them back to safety. But something surprising happened. Those videos didn't just entertain people around town, they started spreading online. The concept was simple, but addictive. People were fascinated watching Matt roll up to impossible recoveries. Vehicles buried in deep sand, stuck halfway down cliffs, or stranded in places where no tow truck had any business being. Viewers could feel the tension in every video. Would the ropes hold? Would the Jeep make it up the hill? Would the stranded family finally be able to drive home? The stakes felt real because they were real. And in an era filled with polished, scripted content, Matt's authenticity stood out. Then came the game changer. The now famous yellow XJ Cherokee, nicknamed the Banana. On the surface, it was just an old Jeep with oversized tires and a bright paint job. But to viewers, it became a character in its own right, a symbol of Matt's ingenuity and determination. When the Banana roared into frame, audiences knew they were about to witness something wild. It wasn't just a recovery vehicle, it was a star of the show. As Matt uploaded more videos, YouTube's algorithm took notice. Clips that started with just a few hundred views suddenly climbed into the tens of thousands, then the hundreds of thousands. Before long, millions of people around the world were watching this small-town tow operator turn impossible rescues into thrilling stories. What made it work wasn't just the recoveries, it was Matt himself. His calm, friendly demeanor, his problem-solving skills under pressure, and his genuine care for the people he was helping made viewers feel like they were part of the ride. He wasn't trying to be a YouTube star. He was just being himself, and that's exactly what drew people in. Soon, Matt's off-road recovery became more than just a channel. It became a community. Fans tuned in not only to see Jeeps pull trucks out of sand dunes, but also to cheer on Matt, his family, and his team. Every episode felt like an adventure with friends, a reminder that even the toughest problems could be solved with patience, teamwork, and a little bit of horsepower. By the time most of the world realized what was happening, the channel wasn't just popular, it was a phenomenon. Millions of subscribers, hundreds of millions of views, and a global audience that couldn't get enough of Matt and the Banana. From humble beginnings to YouTube stardom, Matt had stumbled onto something bigger than he could have ever imagined. But as the world would soon learn, success often comes with challenges no one sees coming. For all the success and fame that Matt's off-road recovery had brought, October 2021 would prove to be one of the most difficult chapters in Matt Wetzel's life. Just as his channel was exploding in popularity, news broke that stunned fans. Matt was being charged with a felony count of insurance fraud. The allegations centered around his professional towing business and its relationship with AAA. Investigators claim that over several years, Matt had submitted invoices for jobs that either didn't meet AAA's coverage guidelines or, in some cases, were allegedly billed for when no service had been performed. According to the investigators, the value of those claims was more than $15,000. For Matt, a man who had built his reputation on honesty, hard work, and helping stranded families in dangerous situations, the accusation hit like a punch to the gut. The stakes could not have been higher. A felony conviction didn't just mean fines, it meant the possibility of prison time. It meant losing his AAA partnership, the very foundation of much of his towing work. And perhaps most devastating, it threatened to unravel the trust he had built with his audience. The story quickly spread beyond Utah. Fans of the channel, stunned by the headlines, scrambled to understand what had happened. Was this simply a misunderstanding of paperwork and technicalities, or was there something more serious at play? The heart of the controversy lay in how AAA contracts operated. Matt's team specialized in off-road recoveries, pulling vehicles out of remote sand dunes, washes, and mountain trails where traditional tow trucks couldn't go. But many of these recoveries blurred the line between what AAA considered a covered roadside assistance call and what they classified as an off-road adventure gone wrong, which often wasn't covered. Investigators claimed Matt had crossed that line, billing AAA for recoveries that technically fell outside their coverage. Matt's supporters argued that his business provided a service few others could offer, and that the distinction wasn't always clear-cut. Was a family stuck on a dirt road really off-roading, or just unlucky travelers who made a wrong turn? To Matt, helping them wasn't just about contracts and fine print, it was about safety. But to investigators, the paperwork told a different story. The pressure was enormous. The possibility of losing everything he had worked for loomed over him and his family. At the same time, the AAA controversy became the spark that pushed Matt to reconsider his business model entirely. Even if he weathered the legal storm, could he continue relying on contracts that seemed to put him in such a precarious position? For fans of Matt's off-road recovery, it was a shocking reminder that behind the adventures, recoveries, and smiles on YouTube, real-world problems still existed. Matt wasn't just fighting mud and sand anymore. He was fighting for his name, his business, and his freedom. And as the case played out, the question hung in the air. Would this legal trouble end the rise of one of YouTube's most unlikely stars? Or would Matt find a way to recover from this challenge too? When a YouTube channel grows from a small-town passion project into a worldwide phenomenon, it doesn't just attract fans, it can also attract conflict. And for Matt, that conflict came from a place he never expected, a friend. From the early days of Matt's off-road recovery, Casey wasn't just a side character. He was a crucial part of the story. He was there on tough recoveries, standing by Matt's side, and bringing humor, strength, and grit to the channel. Fans grew to love him almost as much as they loved Matt. In fact, many would say the chemistry between the two men was part of what gave the videos their charm. To the outside world, they looked like brothers. But behind the camera, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. As the channel exploded in popularity, Casey allegedly began to feel entitled to more, much more. According to multiple accounts, Casey demanded something shocking: 40% ownership of Matt's off-road recovery. Not a salary raise, not a partnership discussion. Nearly half of the entire operation. Matt, who had poured years of sweat, money, and risk into building his company and his channel, was blindsided. Giving away almost half would mean surrendering control over the very business he built from scratch. Naturally, Matt refused. And that's when things turned dark. What followed were allegations of threats and blackmail. Casey reportedly told Matt that if he didn't hand over the ownership stake, there would be consequences. He allegedly hinted at knowing things about Matt's business practices, things that could get him into trouble. Some accounts even suggest that Casey later cooperated with investigators during the insurance fraud case that would soon rock Matt's world. For fans who had watched the two men laugh together, haul wrecked vehicles side by side, and share the triumphs of recovery work, the news was devastating. It was like watching a brother turn on another brother. Matt himself, while careful about what he says publicly, did confirm that the friendship fell apart in a painful way. He shared that what happened behind the scenes was more shocking and heartbreaking than most people realized. And although he rarely goes into detail, it's clear that the sense of betrayal cut deep. The loss wasn't just personal, it was professional. Casey had been an integral part of the channel's energy, and fans noticed his absence almost immediately. The comment sections were flooded with questions. Where's Casey? What happened? Will he come back? But the truth was, Casey wasn't coming back. Instead, Matt and his loyal crew moved forward without him, building trust in each other and doubling down on what made their channel special. Honest hard work, incredible recoveries, and a genuine love for helping people. But the shadow of betrayal lingered, a reminder that even the strongest friendships can fracture when money, fame, and ambition enter the picture. In the end, the betrayal of a friend didn't destroy Matt, but it left scars. Scars that made the challenges ahead, especially the looming legal battle, even harder to face. When the investigation into Matt's off-road recovery turned into a full-blown criminal case, the drama shifted from the backroads of Utah to the solemn halls of the courtroom. Cameras were gone, the laughter and camaraderie of recovery work replaced by tense whispers and the weight of uncertainty. For Matt, it wasn't just about clearing his name anymore. It was about fighting for his freedom, his reputation, and the future of everything he had built. The case centered on insurance fraud. Prosecutors alleged that Matt had knowingly billed multiple insurance companies for towing and recovery work under questionable circumstances. According to the state, the operation wasn't just a small misunderstanding, it was intentional deception. They argued that Matt and his business had profited unfairly by submitting claims that shouldn't have been covered. The prosecution painted a picture of a man who had used his popularity and growing fame as a shield, hiding questionable practices behind the smiling face fans saw on YouTube. They cited paperwork, billing inconsistencies, and even insider accounts to back their claims. But when it came time for Matt to face the court, he didn't storm in with defiance. He didn't deny everything or try to paint himself as a victim of conspiracy. Instead, he stood before the judge and admitted to his mistakes. In a quiet but firm voice, he explained that he had misunderstood parts of the insurance process, that he never set out to defraud anyone, and that his priority had always been serving his community. It was a sobering moment. Here was a man millions admired for his hard work and honesty, now standing vulnerable, explaining his actions in hopes the court would see his side. He accepted responsibility, and through a plea deal, agreed to settle the case rather than drag it into a long, costly trial. The plea deal was a turning point. By accepting it, Matt admitted guilt to reduce charges, avoiding the harsher penalties the prosecution had sought. The courtroom was silent as the judge reviewed the terms, weighing the gravity of the offense against Matt's record, his contributions to the community, and his willingness to cooperate. Finally, the gavel came down with a decision. Matt would not face prison time, but the sentence was still significant. He was ordered to pay restitution to the insurance companies, cover fines, and serve a period of probation. It was a punishment that carried weight but also mercy, a second chance rather than a complete downfall. For Matt, it was both a relief and a wake-up call. He walked out of that courtroom not as a broken man, but as one determined to rebuild, to regain the trust of his audience, and to prove that his mistakes did not define him. The courtroom battle ended with consequences, but also with the possibility of redemption. And while the sentence marked the end of the case, for Matt, it was the beginning of a long journey to earn back respect, rebuild his business, and restore the faith of millions who still believed in him. When the dust of the courtroom finally settled, Matt faced a reality that could have crushed him. He had been sentenced, his name dragged through headlines, and his reputation questioned. For many, this would have been the end of the road. But Matt wasn't built to quit. Instead of retreating into silence, he chose resilience. He kept the cameras rolling, the engines humming, and the recoveries coming. Even as critics circled, his YouTube channel never went dark. Week after week, videos appeared. Trucks stuck in sand, rescues in the Utah desert, and the same laughter and grit that had made Matt's off-road recovery so addictive to watch. The storm was raging around him, but his work became the anchor. Viewers weren't just watching recoveries anymore. They were watching a man fight to keep his passion alive. Surprisingly, the fans didn't turn away. In fact, they leaned in closer. Instead of abandoning him, the community that had grown around Matt seemed to double down. Comment sections filled with words of encouragement. Longtime viewers praised his honesty in court. New subscribers arrived out of curiosity and stayed because they saw something rare, a person facing adversity without hiding. Why did people stay loyal? For many, it was simple. They believed in Matt. They'd watched him for years pull strangers out of impossible situations, often refusing payment, often smiling through the hardest work. To them, the legal trouble didn't erase his character. If anything, it made him more human, flawed, vulnerable, but determined. People don't rally behind perfection. They rally behind resilience. And that's exactly what Matt showed them. Through it all, Matt never pretended nothing had happened. He spoke openly about the case, careful with legal details, but transparent about the lessons he had learned. In videos and interviews, he expressed gratitude, telling fans that their support had carried him through the darkest moments. He acknowledged the trust they had given him and promised to honor it by moving forward stronger, wiser, and more accountable. That gratitude wasn't just words. It was visible in the way he worked, the way he engaged with fans, and the way he pushed his content to higher levels. Viewers noticed they weren't just watching recoveries, they were watching redemption unfold in real time. Resilience became the story. Redemption became the message. And Matt's channel became more than entertainment. It became a testament to the idea that setbacks don't have to define you. By choosing to stay present, to keep uploading, and to thank his fans rather than hide from them, Matt transformed what could have been a downfall into a rebuilding chapter. The controversy that threatened to break him instead became the foundation for something greater. And so, while the legal battle had ended, a new journey had begun, one where every recovery wasn't just about pulling a truck out of the mud, but about showing the world how to rise when life drags you down. As Matt weathered the storm and found his footing again, life on the channel continued to evolve. Change, after all, is part of every story. One of the biggest shifts came when Lizzie and Tom, two beloved faces of the off-road recovery crew, stepped away to chase their own paths. For years, Lizzie had been a constant presence, Matt's right-hand partner on countless recoveries, quick with a smile, fearless behind the wheel, and always ready to get her hands dirty. Fans had watched her grow from a teenager learning the ropes into a confident recovery driver with a style all her own. Tom, too, had become a recognizable figure, his steady presence and good-natured humor helping to balance the crew's long hours and tough recoveries. So when the time came for both of them to leave, it wasn't easy. Not for the audience, and not for Matt. But in true fashion, he handled it with grace. There were no harsh words, no bitterness, no attempts to hold them back. Instead, Matt gave them something far more valuable, his blessing. He spoke openly about their decisions, expressing pride in Lizzie and Tom for taking bold steps forward. His goodbyes were respectful, heartfelt, and filled with encouragement, and that transparency once again endeared him to fans. It showed that Matt understood what so many leaders often forget, that the mark of true leadership isn't about keeping people forever, but about empowering them to grow and move on. With Lizzie and Tom pursuing their journeys, Matt doubled down on what had always mattered most: community, family, and the recovery work itself. He made sure that the channel stayed grounded in the values that had built it in the first place, helping people, telling stories, and bringing laughter to moments of stress. Whether it was pulling a family's RV out of a sand trap, or organizing meetups where fans could gather and share their love for off-roading, Matt's focus remained clear. He wasn't just building a business, he was nurturing a family that stretched across the world. Even through the departures, the controversies, and the long hours, the legacy of Matt's off-road recovery continued to shine. For many fans, it was never just about watching trucks get unstuck. It was about watching resilience, kindness, and problem-solving in action. It was about community, about family bonds, and about seeing ordinary people rise to extraordinary challenges. Despite the hurdles, Matt's story stood as proof that setbacks don't erase legacy, they shape it. Lizzie and Tom would always be remembered as part of that journey, their laughter and courage woven into the fabric of the channel. And Matt, with his unshakable determination, continued steering the ship forward, reminding everyone that recovery isn't just about vehicles, it's about people. Moving forward, Matt's off-road recovery wasn't defined by who left or by the storms that had passed, but by the values that remained. And those values, hard work, family, and community, were stronger than ever. When we step back and look at the journey of Matt from Matt's off-road recovery, it becomes more than just a story about towing cars out of sand or pulling stranded trucks out of ditches. It's about a man who built something from scratch, endured storms that could have ended it all, and somehow came out on the other side stronger than ever. Think about it. Matt started as just a small-town tow truck operator, doing what he loved, helping people who were stuck. He never imagined his work would turn into a YouTube empire, one that millions around the world would tune into. Yet, as we've seen, the road to success wasn't smooth. It was filled with betrayal, legal trouble, and challenges that would break most people. The betrayal by a close friend, KC, could have destroyed him emotionally. The legal charges in 2021 could have ended his career entirely, and the departures of key team members like Lizzie and Tom could have shaken the foundation of his channel. But here's the thing, Matt didn't crumble. Instead, he showed what resilience really looks like. He kept filming, he kept working, he kept showing up for his fans, and in doing so, he reminded everyone watching that failure doesn't come from falling, it comes from refusing to stand back up. That's why people connect so deeply with his story. It isn't just about recovery in the literal sense of pulling out vehicles, it's about recovery in life. About how we too can dig ourselves out of the sand even when it feels like the weight of the world is holding us down. Today, Matt stands as more than just a tow truck operator or a YouTuber. He's a symbol of grit, perseverance, and loyalty to both his craft and his community. The man behind the recovery is proof that even when the world throws its hardest punches, you can still rise, you can still rebuild, and you can still inspire others along the way. And now let's hear from you. What part of Matt's story resonates with you the most? Was it his humble beginnings, his ability to weather betrayal, or his resilience through legal troubles? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.